Guinevere Curry, your host and founder and CEO to Guide to HR. So have you ever thought about what kind of toll building your business takes on you as a human and the people in your life, not just the people that you're working with, but also your personal life? I have Elliot Kallen here with me, and we're going to be talking about this, diving into it. Plus, Elliot is a founder, multi-time founder, successes with some lessons learned, and he's going to be opening up to us to share some lessons learned that we can learn hopefully from him and not make maybe those same mistakes, or maybe make the great one about selling his business. So Elliot, welcome. Thank you so much for joining, and tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Guinevere, it's great to be here. Thank you so much. I am founder of Prosperity Financial Group, Prosperity Wealth Management. Those are companies 3 and 4 that I founded. They total their financial advisory firms, total about a little bit more than $1 billion in assets. And then I also have a foundation called A Brighter Day at www.abrighterday.info, where we help create resources on stress and depression for teens and their families with the goal of stopping teen suicide.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
Started companies, sold companies, working companies. I get it. It's not a straight line. You know, one of the problems out there is that we think of straight lines as Facebook. And we're hit with Mark Zuckerberg, and entrepreneurs go into business thinking, well, if I do this for 5 years, I can go public and get my first $1 billion.
Yeah.
You know that doesn't happen.
Wrong.
So I wrote a book called Driven. It's over my left shoulder. And to teach lessons like that's not reality.
Yeah.
Let's get real on what the toll and the different aspects and phases of your business and what that means, so you can capitalize on your strengths and grow while minimizing your assets. If we can do that, you're going to have a successful business.
Yeah, I love that. And so from that, like, what are some of the things that, as someone is either thinking about starting their own business, maybe they're in the middle of the growth and just kind of figuring out what that looks like, what they're selling, products, services, so forth. Maybe they're a little farther along and maybe have 20, 50 people or more in their business. But what is it that, like, as you've learned and as your family has dealt with, are some of the things that we should be considering in regards to the impact of our business decision on our family and personal life?
Well, that's a great question for someone who's divorced right here.
Oh,
And remarried, and long-term marriages on both, but still, it took a toll on the family. There are 3 phases of business. I write this in a book as well. Phase 1 is the startup. You do a great job with that, Guinevere. These are all the phases of doing everything. I'm chief cook and bottle washer. Maybe I've got some capital. I'm hiring some people. I'm still emptying the garbage cans when needed. I'm still going on Saturdays to Costco to buy my Coke and coffee for the office. And that's phase 1. And sometimes you're phase 1 starting your business, and you're also phase 1 in your family, because a lot of times your kids are young or your marriage is young, or if that's what you're doing. And, you know, I used to have this phrase that says that kids and family are great. They're great together. Kids and marriage are oil and water. Running a business, kids and marriage, is you've got a recipe for disaster there.
yeah.
Because you cannot be, we've been told our whole lives this false narrative that says that you can have it all. You could be a great entrepreneur, a great spouse, and a great parent. And you cannot at the same time do that. But you've been told that. And in Virginia Slims, if you remember them from the 70s, did that to the women's movement. It was "Baby, you can have it all." It was their theme song, and it just divorces skyrocketed because you can't have it all. I cannot be a great CEO right now and be a great parent and a husband at this very minute, because I have to be in a moment with you. When I'm home tonight, I could be either one of those really good. But sometimes I need to be a great dad. And sometimes I got to put that aside and be a great spouse. I'll get to my dad stuff. So it's hard to do all 3 things. When you're at home and you want to be into your kids, you need to be into your kids. When you need to be into your spouse, you need to be into your spouse. But you cannot say, I'm going to be with you. Let's go to the movies. Let's go to the opera. Let's go to a ball game. You and I have a really great date night. And all I talk to you about is my company.
Or you're on the phone dealing with business, right? Yeah.
It's hard. My phone has rung 7 times since you and I have started this conversation. You just can't do it all.
No.
So we teach that a lot of times. That is phase 1. Phase 2 in your business is I've got stuff happening. I've got some momentum building. I've got some cash flow coming in. I'm now expanding. Maybe I'm going to buy some companies out. Maybe I'm going to go into brand new markets. This is exciting. I'm starting to make real money here. And then phase 3, I've been doing this for 5, 10, 20 years. What's the next step in my life? Am I
Mhm.
going to sell my company? Am I going to bring my family into my company, which is almost always a terrible idea?
Yeah, I would
Right?
agree with
Yeah.
that.
Am I going to travel? What's part of my life? Like I've been to, for my wife and I, we decided a decade ago that we would make travel and food and wine a big part of our life. And we are in Europe every year. We are at wineries. I've got a 1,000 bottle wine tasting room. I've got some great Michelin restaurants that we visited. And now we're looking to start another business in food, wine, and travel just because of all of our experiences.
Wow.
And so that's another world of doing that. And so we've talked about that. You cannot do all those things, but you've got to think about all that. And companies like yours that somebody can go to and either outsource something to be done or get great input that they can't see what needs to be done can change a life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know as a CEO, I would make a lousy HR manager because I want to cut
Most
corners.
CEOs do.
I want to cut corners. I want to fire. I've got Mary Lou or Jim, and I need to fire them. And I'm going to do it all the wrong way. And now I got to explain this to a judge.
Yep. And now you've actually cost yourself 10 times more than just bringing on an expert to help you execute correctly.
That's right. So we want to
Yeah.
do it right. You want to bring on the right people, the right consultants. I'm a big fan of consultants. I've hired them over the years. I've hired personal. It's like hiring a personal trainer at the gym. You cannot be expected to be an expert on food, what to eat, so you get the perfect diet. I mean, there are people that have perfect diets and perfect bodies, but I'm not one of them. So I've never had that. I'm not perfect with weight equipment. I need people who can help me and put me on the right regimen. Those are personal trainers. Those are outsourcing to somebody else's expertise to make you better. Business works the exact same way.
Yeah. That's such a great analogy. I'm going to have to steal that from you, Elliot.
Yeah, be my guest.
So I think this is such an important factor of really thinking through what is you're trying to accomplish? Why are you building this business? And you said it kind of earlier, like, and then what do you want to do with it? Like in 5 to 10, 15 years, like what is your ultimate outcome? I've had this asked of myself, is this a lifestyle business? Is this a business that you want to turn into a business? Are you looking to sell it, partner off, whatever it might be? But whatever the answer is, how you interact and engage with your family, yourself, taking care of yourself. I mean, you use the gym as a great example. Like your self-care is also important. Being the great CEO, the great dad, the great spouse. What about great self? Like you also need time to just have some self-care as well.
Yeah, having a heart attack at 52 is not a good example of taking care of yourself. Not that I have one,
No.
but I've known too many entrepreneurs in their 50s. They eat poorly. They do drive-through fast food all the time because it's fast. And we're
Yeah.
all type A personalities. Male, female, we are type A.
Yeah.
Type A means we want to get the job done and get it done fast and now.
Yes. And don't take that moment to celebrate you got it done because there's 10 other things you got to get done now as well on top
Yes,
of it.
I get up at 4:45 every day and hit the gym.
Ah,
And,
oof.
and I have to, because if I don't, I put on 10, 15, 20 pounds. It's
Yeah.
the only thing keeping that weight off. And the reason for that, I'm so much better today than I used with food than I used to be, because when you're in a hurry, what are you doing when you go to McDonald's? You're getting a quarter pounder with cheese and French fries, the meal. What are you
Yeah.
doing at Kentucky French fries? You get the meal. Well, that's French fries. Well, I was teasing my wife a couple of months ago, and I said, I just want you to know that if we ever get divorced, my next wife's going to be potato, because she's perfect. And so that's a really big issue, is eating well and eating smart. And I have to go and outsource that to talk to somebody to remind me to eat smarter. And what did you do today with food, Elliot? What did you have for lunch today?
Yeah.
Yeah, for lunch. What I had, besides a salad, which can be completely unfulfilling. Salad.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the hard part too. And I will even add, when you're in a rush and you get that fast food, what do you then do? You literally scarf it down in 5 minutes, which just compounds the issue of not taking care of yourself and giving yourself that space to recognize what you're eating, even your breathing space. Like take some time off of that computer or that phone and just kind of let your mind wander. And as a founder, letting your mind wander, it could be the most powerful tool and moment you have, because that's where ideas get generated, different ways of thinking about running the business and doing things can happen. And sometimes we don't give ourselves that space.
Oh, creativity when you're alone can be absolutely amazing. It's great. But for the people that are listening to your show and really understand the value that you bring, if they recognize the fact that they're probably drivers And some are extroverts, some are engineers and not quite as extroverty as a marketing salesperson. But that's okay, because maybe that's a company that needs more an engineering type of company. What if they understand that they are driving the force, then they also understand that leadership is so important, and they are the leader of their
Yeah.
organization, and
Yeah.
they're the role model. And so if they start self-destructing, and self-destructing comes in many forms, but if they start self-destructing and doing dumb things, so will their company. And then things begin to unravel. So you are the leader at all times. And that's not really fair, because you think, wait, Saturday night, I just want to get rip-roaring drunk because I haven't gotten drunk in months. Well, that's okay too. You need to unwind, unless you're driving. That would be a different thing.
Just turn off the, your phone so you don't start texting somebody something
That's right.
inappropriate.
But just remember, if you're going to do that, don't be upset if somebody else does it to another degree. That they did it Thursday, you saved it for Saturday, they did it Thursday, because you were talking about what a great time you had, drinking, 11 gin and tonics, from the best gin on earth. These are things that you need to put into perspective, because you are you're the leader of the family, you're the role model of your organization, and you're the one that drives the conversation and the growth. And if you're not the one doing that, then hire people that can help you do that, because maybe what you are is much more of a chairman of the board type of person than a CEO type of person, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this. This is great. So when you're thinking about the pitfalls that we encounter inside of, building our businesses and the wealth and staying on course, what are some of the things that you would recommend people thinking about in regards to health, whether that's with their community, their family, their community, their physical health, or even like you're a financial advisor, right? So financially, it's like, what are some things that we should be thinking about as founders here?
That's a great question here, Guinevere.
I feel
So
like it was a little bit big. So if you want to dive,
well, let me narrow it down to health and wealth.
there.
Let's talk about health and wealth. So health is wide. Health is not just about your body. It's about the health of your marriage or the health of your family. And are you paying attention to them? Are you reading through? Are you asking questions through the lines versus the line? And let me give you a good example, because I deal with teenagers in my charity a lot. When I grew up, and my mother was sick when I was in high school, so I didn't get very much of my mother in high school. My dad was a small business owner. I don't think he ever made more than $40,000 a year. And his thing was, look, I'm not going to put on you I was the youngest. I had a Chevy Vega in the driveway, my mother's Chevy Vega. I'm not going to put on you anything. You have to be home at a certain time or sleep at a certain time. If your grades don't change when your mom is sick, I'm good, because I know you're going to go to college. If you're out till 1 a.m, you got to call me by 11 to tell me where you are. And we were mostly hanging out at White Castle. So we were pretty popular, right? Anything like that. We were doing that kind of stuff. But he would come home and he'd say, how was the math test today? And I'd say, fine. What's going on at school? Nothing. And so I was answering him like a caveman, monosyllabically or simple words. And so when I was raising my kids, I would ask them similar questions and I would get similar answers. But that doesn't work anymore. You
Yeah.
have to ask better questions. You have to ask, as a parent, what's going on with your best friend? What's your favorite class, your least favorite, your favorite teacher, your least favorite? And listen for the answers. Because teenagers today, the teens of today, are the most depressed teens in the history of our country. And you want to be in front of that. And that goes for your business, because these people are coming to work and they probably have teenagers. How's it going with Mary or John, your teenager? How are you doing with that? Because that's the interpersonal skill side that misses in so many entities. We work in our world today, you and I do, on a very interpersonal level. We don't just work on, how's your health? Fine. You want to know a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
Really? How's yeah, I noticed you're going to the gym. Good for you. How's that going?
Yeah.
Do you really work out a lot? Or I don't know about you, but my hips are killing me. How are your hips? Things like that. You're asking
Yeah.
better questions. That's what I mean by health. Health of your personal health, your family health, your marital health, your employees' health. And that's mental as much as physical on that.
Yeah.
When you're talking about wealth, nobody gets in business to go out of business. Nobody gets in business to finish with less money than they started with. So you're going to have all these challenges in business: lawsuits, accounts receivable, how to finance aggressive growth, all these things. Make sure you're talking to an expert at that. The mistake I made in my 20s when I had a company, we were growing 40% a year, and I was burning through cash.
Huh.
And I could not understand how I could be so profitable and not have any money. It didn't make sense. And the people I was asking outside of the bank were telling me, well, you're really profitable. Don't worry about it. It'll work itself out one time. The bank was the only one that was telling me that's because your burn rate is so high.
Mhm.
And at 25, 28, I didn't understand the term burn rate.
Yeah. What is that? Yeah, exactly.
And so at some point I hit such a wall, they owed it, $500,000 to a bank. And they, to get another 500,000, which is what I needed, they needed certain pledges that I was really uncomfortable and my wife was really uncomfortable doing. And
Mhm.
I ended up selling the company because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
That's a cash flow mistake. I would have been smarter if somebody had given me better advice when we talked about financial health, is to hire, and today maybe a part-time CFO or
Mhm.
controller who could have given me advice and say, hey, we have to work on your burn rate and being more profitable and projecting better cash flow. And I would have said, explain that to me because I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's important. If you're putting me in marketing, I'm a whiz on that. I get that. But I have two full-time marketing people that work for me because they know social media and digital marketing way better at their age than I ever will at my age. And so you got to understand that too.
Yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
world of digital media today, your drivers, your entrepreneurs, they better have people in their 20s working for them in digital media. Because in your
Yeah, that's
40s,
very
you don't know
true.
what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a, an HR characteristic. I would agree with that for sure. And it's also like a matter of, you just said it, marketing, but you still have two people, and maybe they're in the realm of the area that you think, okay, that's the marketing area. I don't know. But even if it's somebody doing something that that then opens you up to continue to do something that you should be focusing on, in regards to whether or not you should be going to this kind of convention, or going and spending time with this investor, or whatever it is. Like, the CEO's time is precious. And then you got to add on, as we said earlier, that compounding, like, you also want to be a good parent, a good spouse, a good person to yourself, your health. You want to stay alive longer than 50. And so where do you end up kind of pushing, yeah, I can do it, or maybe I don't know it, or I can do it, one of those two, right? And giving that to an expert and giving yourself space to do something else.
I think if you think for a moment, another very good question. I think if you think for a moment, which is hard for an entrepreneur to do, is what's my end game here?
Yeah.
Because one thing I learned, because I've been in the financial business for 30 years, is I would go to these Schwab and TD Ameritrade and Raymond James meetings when I was younger, and I'd look at these white-haired white men sitting there in their 80s, still going to these. And I'd walk up to them out of curiosity, because I'm a curious person, and I'd say, what are you still doing here? And I'd get answers like, well, I can't be home with my spouse all day. I would drive her nuts. Or I can only play golf once a week, or I have no hobbies.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, I will never be one of those people.
Amen to that.
And that's why in my financial world, I have in my mind that I want to take those companies and put them in the next level of a transition so I can start doing something different and start another company that could hold me for 5 years.
Mhm. Yeah,
I think that's important
exactly.
to do.
It is. It's important to really kind of know what your end game is. What do you want to do and what do you want to get out of it? Because if you don't have that direction, then how can you actually drive your business to the place you want to go? You need to know where you're going.
But the adage, the Stephen Covey adage, that always begin with the end in mind, I don't buy into
Mm,
it. Because when you're young and you're starting something and the company's young, it's really hard to see where it's going.
that's true. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
deep in the weeds, and then you suddenly begin to come out of the weeds and get some help with companies just like yours, Guinevere. Um, I mean, I got some help because I went to Tony Robbins, and I did the Walking on Fire Destiny weekend, and he made everybody in that room, and there were probably 400 people in that room,
Wow.
made people think what that fire represented. You're going to walk on 80 feet of fire. What does it represent to you? And everybody had different things, and then hook up with somebody you've never met and discuss what it represents to them and what it represents to you, and see if they can shed some light on that. And that was so enlightening to me that I began to think, wow, I got to get out of my own space here because what I'm doing is much bigger than who I am.
Yeah, that's powerful. So in the last few minutes we have here, you shared that you've sold businesses. This is you're on business 3 and 4. I'd love, and you probably have hours and hours of worth of lesson learns, but knowing our audience and what they want to hear, what you think they want to hear, what would be some of a lesson, one or two, that you could share with us? Maybe a positive, and then maybe one that is like, oh, that really hurts, and you don't want anyone else to make that same mistake.
Well, you know, what's funny, when I grew up in business school, they said always improve your weakness every single year and hire out to your strength. And that was going around for about 20 years. They don't teach that anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's hire to your weakness. Don't try to fix your weaknesses. Don't even work on your weaknesses. Improve your strengths. Make your strengths over the top spectacular. So understand your strengths is probably the first thing that your entrepreneurs need to know. My strength is marketing. My strength is finance. My strength is engineering. My strength is people. My strength is rainmaking, making deals happen. Understand your strength. And then, like I wish I did in my 20s, is hire a financial person. Because even though I have an accounting background and I went to Rutgers when an accounting major, I hate that stuff. So I never would pay attention to it. And
Yeah.
that's what I mean. You got to hire your weakness away. HR is not my strength. I would hire you in a split second or your firm to do that. But
Yeah.
marketing is a big thing for me.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
running day-to-day marketing for my employees and salespeople here, I hate that job. That makes me your sales manager and your mother and your father. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so great. I hope everyone listening just takes a moment to think about what their strengths are and how that fits into what they're doing, whether they're thinking about running their own business, starting their own business, but they're currently in an employee situation, employer-employee situation. Are they working to their strengths? And if they already are a founder, are you doing what you are, like your strengths are? And it is so validating to hear this from you, Elliot, because for me, my strengths is the building of HR, that foundation, and coming in and just creating a space that will allow founders to scale their business from a people operations perspective. And then once they get there, then we start talking about, coaching and mentoring and all these other things. I'm like, that's not really my strength. I think I'll bring in my recommended. I'll recommend. Let me rephrase that. Melvin, cut that out. I'll recommend to my customers. Okay, here are 3 different amazing experts in this section of HR that you'll want to work with directly and not with me.
It's okay. Again, find what you do really well and do it. Learn to love that and hire the rest out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as we wrap up here, any last thoughts or tips or tricks that you'd like to share with the audience today?
I think, again, the hiring to your strength is a really big tip. Watch your cash flow. And the old phrase is, if you do what you love, it never feels like you're working. There's a lot of truth to that. Work can be exhausting, but if you wake up and you say, I really enjoy what I do, and find a way to do that, then you're going to love going to work. And if you love going to work and you make good decisions and you surround yourself with people like you who could take over stuff that they're not good at, you're going to have great success.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I realized I forgot to ask you. So you're actually doing 2 businesses right now, but one is a foundation. And I would love to give you a minute to share what this foundation is all about to our audience.
It's great. It's called A Brighter Day, or abrighterday.info is the website. We build resources for teens and their parents with the goal of stopping teen suicide. Unfortunately, I have a son who committed suicide.
Oh,
And he was a
so sorry to
sophomore at
hear
the
that.
University of Thank you. Sophomore at the University of Montana. And he wrote a suicide note to us, which we got before we knew he was dead. And it was long, but it said, Mom and Dad, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I never would have asked for your help. I never would have told you how I felt, and I never would have taken your help. And it was that paragraph on a 6-page suicide note that was the impetus and the motivation to say, we don't want this happening to other families. And we created this resource where teens get free texting help 24/7, all 50 states for free. They get live Zoom meetings with counselors in their state within 7 days, which could take locally 6 to 10 weeks. We make it happen in 7. We get them inpatient help if they need that. We are trying to change the lives of teens, one teen at a time.
Wow, that is so powerful. And we'll definitely display all that information and links to that org in all of our postings. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry to hear about your son, but out of tragedy, you're making something that's really going to be impactful and help hundreds of thousands of people. You might not even know how many people you actually get to impact from this one
We
event.
don't, but we're trying to change lives.
Yeah, that's so impactful. Well, thank you for sharing that, Elliot. And thank you for joining us today and sharing your lessons learned and talking about how building your business has a human impact on yourself and your family. I think that's important to consider as a founder myself and for those listening. So thank you again, Elliot, for joining us. And thank you for listening, audience. And we'll see you on the next podcast.